Welcome to the Posture Pros. I'm Dr. Dan with Dr. Pascal. Welcome to the Posture Pros. Really, our goal with this video is to give you as much information as we can to help you with anything related to posture and your overall health. Today, we want to specifically address the 5 predictors for pain. A lot of times we see patients coming into our office and going, Doc, everything is in pain. I'm sore from top to bottom, and I have been for the last 2 or 3 years. And then we see the other end of where patients are coming in and saying, hey doc, could you just give me a checkup just to see how I'm doing overall? And somewhere in the middle, ideally, we'd like to bridge that, because the person that's coming in that's feeling great, we want to ensure that they have all the information they need to stay that way for the rest of their life. Whereas on the opposite end, that person that's been in pain for years, I wish we could have met them years ago to at least maybe address or let them know of maybe some pitfalls that they were missing.
Right. I think the number one thing, so if someone comes in, and we'll use the latter person you described, the one that comes in and says, Doc, I want to make sure I don't end up like this, right? And so if we're going to do an exam and we're going to do a checkup with this person in the office, the number one thing that we would both agree on that is going to predict their future pain and disability is their posture, specifically their abnormal posture, so that postural breakdown, right? The spine has a very ideal specific position for us to be able to age well, healthy, and function well. And the posture is like a window to that spine. So if someone's starting to shift over to the side or round into these bad positions, whether or not pain has developed yet, that posture, the worse it is, so the more deviated from normal it is, the stronger predictor of future pain and disability.
Right. And think of your posture almost like a house, where a house was designed to have a proper foundation, structural walls, and everything to basically sit and even out that load throughout that home or that foundation. Now, same thing happens to our posture. Our posture is designed to have head over the shoulder, over the hip, over the knee, over the ankle. That's how we were designed. The more distorted we are, think of it almost like, again, you're doing a reno on your house, you take out a supporting wall, now the load will be unevenly spread out through the house, which could cause, cracks, shifts, foundation issues, water leaking in, and those are the symptoms that, the house will be having. But same thing for as a body, that could start to cause headaches, neck pain, back pain, numbness and tingling. It could cause all kinds of different things. So number 1 on that list is posture.
Now, the interesting thing is all the things that you just mentioned, the symptoms, the headaches, the pain, the tingling, those are simply like warning signs, right, that the problem is there. And so if that pain has been there for 20 years, what's as important to understand is those deviations in posture, how it changes the loading of your spine. Not only does it cause symptoms, it also breaks down your spine. So now you get into this problem where you're starting to get accelerated degeneration of your spine. There are 100 different terms to describe it, right? Osteoarthritis, degenerative spine disease, there's all these different terms. If we want to break it down as simple as possible, it means your spine is breaking down. And so that really bad posture, again, the further off it is, not only does it cause these symptoms and pain, it breaks your spine down. So it means that the longer it's been there, the less and less likely it is that you can correct that problem or totally reverse it. Right. So when it's caught early, these postural problems, we can reverse them. And that's why it's probably the number 1 predictor, because it has the biggest effect on long-term degeneration of the spine and the nervous system. That's the interesting part too. We're looking at more and more studies now that when the spine breaks down, it starts to stretch the nerves and affect the nervous system on the inside too, causing more health issues.
So basically, your posture affects the function of your whole entire body. So the worse your posture, the faster you age, and also the worse you feel over time. So if you're looking at this video now and you're feeling okay, number 1 thing is you should check is, okay, how am I doing? How is my posture? And that would be the number 1 predictor to know, okay, where are you going to be in 10, 20, 30 years from now?
Absolutely.
So Doc, what's number 2?
Well, number 2 will lead to a bad number 1, if that makes sense. So number 2 is movement. So we need to move throughout the day. So maybe we shouldn't say movement, we should say lack of movement would be the number 2 predictor. Because as we stay sedentary, as we stay fixated in certain positions, especially if those positions aren't ergonomic, or we'll say with like a poor posture, with time, that's going to lead to that postural breakdown. So number 2 is the lack of movement, which is, especially over the past couple of years, the COVID pandemic, we've seen just like a skyrocketing of sedentary living, right? 8 hours a day sitting at your computer, and then the hours pre and post work are, cell phone, laptop, gaming, personal stuff on a digital device. And so we want to get people moving, because if you can keep a body in motion, you're going to prevent a lot of the postural problems and breakdown long term.
But like you talked about sitting, well, just even sitting perfectly will still have an increased load on the disc, which again could cause pain long term.
Correct.
So one of the key things that you could do in terms of making sure your body's moving is just every 30 minutes, just move for 30 seconds. Get up, stretch, touch your toes, walk around, go up and down a flight of stairs, go get a glass of water. Anything that you could do to move will be key to help you.
We've said this plenty of times in different formats, on different videos, explaining to people that, if Dr. Dan sits for 8 hours a day, and at the end of the day he goes to, Orange Theory or to the gym or any place and goes and throws down, an hour intensive workout, but he sat for 8 hours a day, versus myself that's gonna get up every 30 minutes and walk for 2 minutes and do a couple of stretches, we'll say 8 to 10 times throughout the day. Who's gonna have a better health status for movement and posture? It's gonna be me.
Yeah. Even though I went to the gym for 2 hours, right? We cannot undo the effects of sitting. I think that's what you were trying to get to.
Yes. It sounded bad, but the whole point, the purpose of that was to say that, small movement throughout the day will trump one big exercise session if you're still stuck sitting all day. So it's movement, but it's small movement repetitively throughout the day. Yeah.
And number 3 would be injuries. So what injuries have you had over your lifetime? We always ask this of our patients. Even if they're coming in feeling great, we go, okay, number 1, have you gotten into any car accidents? Even if you didn't get hurt. Because a lot of times, if you could be 18, 20, 22 years old, you could get into quite a severe accident, walk away and going, I feel okay, right? Because your body was able to recover. But it doesn't mean there wasn't any injuries or damage to the ligaments, the muscles, and the spine that now could come back and haunt you 10, 20, 30 years from now.
And really the only way to know if there are injuries to the ligaments of the spine, especially if someone is asymptomatic, is to take advanced imaging, which could be things like x-rays and MRI. And oftentimes they have to be like motion x-rays. So if I just take an x-ray of your spine, from the side without you moving, I might not see them. But if I have you bend your head forward, backwards, tilt you side to side, now all of a sudden we see these areas that are completely unstable in the spine. And even though there's potentially no pain, well, that instability over time is going to cause problems, it's going to cause breakdown, and later on, you're going to have pain. So that is a strong predictor of future pain.
And if you want to think of it almost like where there's an instability in a joint, it's not affecting you now, but think of it almost same thing as a rolled ankle. Let's say you played soccer as a kid, you're 13 years old, you have a, kind of a fall, you roll your ankle, you hurt your ankle, it's sprained, so now those ligaments and muscles are now injured. So now guess what? You do the same thing a year from now. Which ankle is going to be, let's say, weaker or more prone to another injury? Is that same ankle. So it's going to happen more and more often on that side. Same thing for an area of the spine. If there's an injury from a fall, an accident, that injury will then be weaker over time and more is going to accumulate on that joint.
And those weakened joints tend to have tightened muscles. So tight muscles is the 4th indicator. If a joint is weak because of ligament instability, well, something has to also compensate to try and create strength around that joint if the ligaments aren't properly rehabilitated. So in a case where the ligaments are rehabilitated, we're not going to build that same muscle tension problem over time. And so as muscles tighten up to try and stabilize bad areas, well, those tight muscles will then lead to future problems, myofascial pain syndromes or other joints up and down the kinetic chain that don't move properly. And when those joints don't move properly, you build scar tissue leads to stiffness leads to pain and breakdown. It's this vicious cycle that happens. happens. So just like getting people to move all day, what's even better than constantly moving all day is also, whether it's before your workout or later in the days, to throw in a stretching routine to specifically address any tight areas that you might have.
Right. And another thing maybe to add on in terms of, like you mentioned, tight muscles is you mentioned a joint when it becomes stiff, obviously that could cause pain, but one of the key things for any joint, it needs to go through a full range of motion. When it doesn't move, your pain will go up. So when you think of, let's say, even if you had a knee injury and your knee is stiff, it's stiffer or more painful in the morning, as you move it, it starts to kind of decrease a little bit just by that extra movement. So yeah, we need those joints to move. And number 5,
last but not least,
is nutrition.
Now, nutrition, we're only putting it last, not because it's less important than any of the other ones. It's just simply put that, potentially nutrition we work with less than specifically spine and posture. But nutrition plays a big role in joint pain, spinal pain, overall pain, right? Because nutrition is like a key, it's a key indicator, or it is directly linked to the inflammation inside your body.
Right.
So bad nutrition, more inflammation. Good nutrition, less inflammation.
So basically more sugar, those bad fats, lots of carbs, all those things together causes more inflammation and very painful for those joints.
Correct. And we've seen that like in patients who will have arthritis, any kind of arthritis. Well, it's osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. You see them when we put them on a better nutritional protocol, again, without changing anything else. Their joint pain in, say, their knuckles, their hands, their wrists, their elbows gets significantly better. So just making simple choices like, whether it's decreasing the sugars or sometimes even adding things like an omega oil, drinking more water, drinking a greens powder, adding turmeric or some anti-inflammatory elements to your diet can make a massive impact on current but also future pain.
So those 5, basically, like we talked about today, is number 1 is posture. Number 2 is a lack of movement. Number 3 is those injuries. Number 4 is basically leading into tight muscles. And number 5 is nutrition. If you need help with any of those, don't hesitate to reach out to us either here at the office at Lindenwood's Chiropractic, or we could comment below and we'll reach out to you. Have a great rest of your day.